Hey, Composing Gloves here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make the Vicetone track Nevada's Pluck Bell intro sound, and yeah, so that's what we're going for. So here's what I was given as a reference, the actual track. So it sounds like this, right? That's why I'm like, oh, that's kind of a nice bell sound. So I tried synthesizing it, and this is what I got. So you see, I've got like the idea. It's pretty close in my opinion, but maybe you disagree. Maybe you're like, that's light years away or whatever. There's a couple subtleties I tried to include that are in this that may have been the result of some other processing that happened later on down the chain, or maybe the mastering. Mastering can often change the way things like this sound quite dramatically, depending on like who you give it to. So yeah, so it's a bell sound, pretty simple sound. But if you want to get into like the real subtleties of it, it's no longer simple. So let's talk about what's going on here. Now, this is the bell sound. It's going into 17. On track 17, I'll even name this bell sound. If you listen to this, there's like this sort of like clicky, dusty sort of sounds, like occasionally you hear like little things like that. And at first I was like, what is that? And then I determined, oh, this is definitely triggered by the bell sound, so it's probably a type of distortion. And it also sounds like there's a delay going on, and it sounds like some of the delay from what would be perceived as a sine tone. If you chop off like the first half of the sine tone, that little click that would result sounds like that as well. So I decided to add that as well. So let's start at the beginning here. Now, I'm just going to explain this patch, and if you want to follow along, that's great. If you don't, that's great too. So first off, we got to get our timbre right. And if you think bell sounds, this sounds very heavily like a sine tone. This sounds like there's a couple of harmonics hanging around in some unusual spots. So if we open it up here, this is the timbre. Now Harmor is really cool because it lets you draw in the specific harmonics that you want. Now I settled on this, okay? And when I was making it, I just needed something that sounded kind of sine tony, and I turned my fundamental up quite substantially. This is important because the sine tone is a fundamental feature. It's fundamental pun there. But here we've got, like, this is just the overtone. They're very, very soft. They're like, some people might not even do it and probably get really close as well. But anyways, that's really low. Let's turn it up. So that's what you have. And what's going on here is I have a crude low pass on, shaving off some of that high end. Without it on, if we go to like custom shape 2 or whatever, you see those harmonics. So I shave those off, ironically. So we go to crude low pass. And it makes it sound a lot more subdued. The other important thing, so we've got our timbre decided, and we've sort of figured out the spectrum. There's a couple other moves we're going to make. But then we come over here to the volume envelope, right? So you click over here, you get to the volume envelope, and you see that it's a pluck sound. So you want to pluck, and I went for this. That's something that is overlooked sometimes, is this long release envelope, right? I hit a note, and it rings out this whole way. You can see the line still moving. If I get rid of this release, hit D, there's no such thing. So it's actually kind of it's an important thing to have. I believe I had it right there. It's not super important timing wise. Next up, I have this sub. This sub is contributing to the warmth of it. It's very, very soft. If I turn it up more, it becomes very apparent, but it's just a subtlety that I put in there to give it. You can even see it right there. So it's just in there to reinforce our sine tone, because the other harmonics in here are unrelated to the fundamentals. So normally in a sound, the fundamental would be like 100 hertz. So the harmonics would be like 100, 200, 300. There'll be multiples of the fundamental. And bell sounds, they are very metallic in nature, and they're called overtones at this point because they are not multiples of the fundamental. They actually they're sort of something else. They're like 236, even though the fundamental is 100 hertz. So they're in weird spots. And so to accomplish this, I used the prism in multiplication mode, and I moved it around like that. The other thing I did to get a sound, at this point, I was working with a frequency of the octave I'm actually playing. And I ended up taking it down 3 octaves. And that's what you get. So those are those steps. Now, the next step, I'm not going to mess with in real time to show you because it's quite a touchy step, but it's a step I picked up recently. I just thought of it and started messing with it. I don't know why I've never really thought of it before. But on the unison, it generates another copy of your voice, right? So I put on 2. So essentially, I've generated another copy of my voice. And I took the panning all the way down, though. And I left the phase where it's at. And I'm just simply using the pitch. And I move it up and down by very minute amounts. And it changes the way the signal sounds. Like, there's that. I am going to mess with it. Let me move it up 1. So there it up. So you see how that sounds like mega different. And so if you do that, if you do more voices, these moves become more and more important. And what it's doing is it's changing the phase alignment. Something that makes this work though is you want to keep you don't want to mess with your phase or atomization button up here on this sort of a sound. So yeah, just a cool thing. And it allows me to sort of get an effect I want. They're basically comb filtering each other when you do stuff like that, but they're very, very close to sine waves. And so the results are going to be kind of an interesting deal. It's not going to perfectly cancel out at any one moment because of the harmonics, but they will, yeah. Anyways, they just filter each other in a cool, interesting way that I think is very dynamically usable. Over here, we've got our reverb, and our reverb is just on default or with the decay brought up. So it's not on default. Haha. JK smiley face. We have the reverb, and without it, it sounds like this. And that release is responsible for that nice little angelic moment at the end. If we turn it on, though, now we get like a space. It sounds really relaxing. Like we're getting a lot closer to our sound now. At this point, I wrote out a little thing to try and, not the exact same notes, but something that resembled this thing. That way I had the correct octaves and stuff so I could start making more direct comparisons. Okay. So after that, I went in and was that it? I believe that might have been it in here. Oh, the EQ. That's what I'm missing. So I have an EQ. This line is the pitch it's playing, but it's a little weird because it doesn't show me like every pitch. This is like the area it's in. I don't know if this is the lowest pitch or not. I haven't bothered to look it up. But basically, wherever this line is, if you mess with where that line is, you're going to get really different results. And this EQ is a mega powerful EQ. So for reasons that are explained in the Harmon from the Ground Up series. So if I move this down, you see those are pretty drastic differences. And so I ended up settling on a curve like this. This is the curve I have selected. You may select a different curve if you desire. Next, we go into the bell sound. Now, if I turn this stuff off, that's what I had. And you're like, that does not sound that different. Now let me turn it back on, turn these guys off. And so originally I used Isotope Vinyl. It's a free plugin, but there's this dust setting and you turn it on and it will give you some crackles. If you can hear that, turn it up more. So you hear that? It's just stuff like that. I actually have dust and dirt samples in one of my sample libraries. Not my sample library, one that I bought. But this kind of stuff can really add organic feeling to a track. Gives you a vinyl feel to a track. So they're really pretty cool effects. But then I determined later on that probably was not happening. Another step that I did, one more thing on the tonal side is, on this EQ, now this is TDR Nova, another free plugin. If you go into my free plugins video playlist on my YouTube channel, you'll find this in the list. I believe it's like number 1 or 2 or something currently. And what it is it's a dynamic EQ. So I've turned on band 3 and you see this blue line, that is the threshold. So whenever a signal, a frequency goes past this threshold, it gets too loud, then my EQ will turn on and turn it down, and you can see it visually. So I turn on the threshold. I said if any frequencies in this range go above negative 5.6 decibels, turn it down at this ratio. This is great because now softer frequencies can get through without being attenuated, that allow those sounds to be represented in the spectrum properly while attenuating only the times that offends me. And so I like that. It's a way of keeping my sound within reason. Then the last step is I have a fruity wave shaper on this thing. And you can barely hear it, but it's sort of there. Oh, and there's another thing that I have going on here I totally overlooked. But this fruity wave shaper has this really slight curve, like you can see it. And basically as the sound gets in here, the farther up it goes along the sound, it'll reach different parts and be distorted differently. This will give me sort of a little bit of a driven feel. So you can hear it a little more aggressively when I turn it up. But it's a very subtle thing and gives it just a little bit of like a nice feel to it. So that's what I was going there. Next, I had it routed to this channel. So it's going into the next channel, which is actually already set up in my template for me. Send one. And in here, I have Fruity Delay 2 on it. On Fruity Delay 2, I have a step time of, I believe, 2. Let's check it. Yeah, it's 2. So we have 2 up here. And I have my cutoff. I have some options in here for delaying things, okay? But I don't want to use this thing primarily because of the way it is. It's just not as exact as I want it to be. So I put it in here and used it as a delay, and I put my feedback around here. If I take my feedback away, that's okay, but I ended up doing this. So I wanted a couple more like rings when I played stuff. The next step is if I play a sound, you hear that tut, 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 tut. It's not quite the same thing. That is a filtered delay tap. So if I come in here, you see I actually have filtered it. You can hear it. That was what I was going for because that's what he has. So you can hear him like he's playing a whole bunch more stuff. So it's like kind of everywhere. But whoops, that's the audio. So I could mess with this further and get something that's even closer. And also another thing I could consider doing is bringing out different velocities and things. I'm not sure if he went that far, but there's totally an option. So that's my bell sound. If you have any questions about this, let me know. Subscribe. Do you think I got close? Let me know. If you don't think I got close, but be nice about it, man. You want to do this and get even closer, then you can like sort of just rub it in my face. But if you're just like some guy, it's going to be like, oh, that's not, and you're not willing to make a video about it, then forget you, man. Yeah. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe. Support me on Patreon and have a blessed day.